Hey everyone, Big Seven here, back from a bit of a hiatus to bring you my team reveal for 2024. There are likely going to be a couple of changes that I do make to the side as a result of round zero, but I think I'm fairly set on the majority of players in the team. If you want to skip right to that, you can do so. I'll put some chapters in the video. Before I do that, I'm going to talk about my general philosophy towards tackling this season and also a few things that might have changed in my thinking. So in terms of my philosophy, it's going to be pretty similar to last year, where with a starting team, trying to target players that are relatively underpriced, or if they're not underpriced, then they need to at least have some upside to them. Um, and I guess moving from 35 trades to 40 trades means that although injury history is a factor, durability is a little bit less important. I still want to avoid players like Yo that I don't think will even get through half a year, let alone a full season, because copping an injury during upgrade season, which is, between around about rounds 5 or 6 through to the first bye, that really does set you back. But at the same time, I do think it matters a little bit less this year. In terms of my upgrades, going to be aggressively upgrading when I can. If that means I end up cutting a couple of rookies too early, like I did last year, then so be it. I think the ends justify the means. And in terms of things that could be different for this year, going up to 40 trades, I mean, for one, it means that I hopefully won't be out of trades by round 18 again. Although that was, due to a couple of factors. I did make a couple of bad trades in there that were pretty wasteful, but also copped a fair few injuries in that. But look, the strategy from last year, for the most part, it worked. I mean, I was sitting at around about 200 odd before the buys, and then my team really completely fell apart, and I still managed to finish around 1500 odd. So I'll be looking to implement a similar kind of strategy, go for the underpriced players. And I guess the other thing that's really different this year is the buys. There are 8 teams that will have an extra bye as a result of playing the opening round. Round 2, Brisbane and Carlton have the bye. Round 3, it is GWS and Gold Coast. Round 5, Sydney and Collingwood. Round 6, Richmond and Melbourne. And I've seen a few people that are really against picking premiums from that bye, and I understand it. Like, from a theoretical point, if you are picking someone from that bye, for example, you want to pick a Gordon or someone like that. If you're picking him, then you're going to have a rookie covering his score in round 5. That's probably around a 50, 60 point hit. And in theory, that Gordon fader could just trade him in round 6, and they've got a points advantage on you. And I understand that part of it, but also there's the other part where if your player does do well in those first few weeks, it's not going to be easy to trade them in. I guess Tim English from last year is a really good example of that, where if you didn't jump on him round 3 or round 4, then there just wasn't a good time for you to jump onto him. So for the most part, I want to pick a team as per usual, and I'm happy to cop a 50, 60 point hit if it means that I get the players that I think are underpriced, that do have the upside to them, that I might regret not starting. So enough waffle. We'll get into the side now. Starting off in defense, everyone seems to do that, but this year it makes sense because it seems like the line that is the least flexible. So in terms of my premiums, Dacos, Stewart, Sheasel, and Hayden Young. And I think they would be the top 4 owned premiums. Yep. Sicily's up there as well. I'm not really a big Sicily fan, just based on a couple of things. Sam Mitchell, he put Carl Amon back in defence at the end of last year, and it did seem to hamper Sicily's scoring a bit. So I worry about the ceiling, and also an injury to James Blank means that Sicily could potentially need to be a bit more accountable. So a little bit off of him. In terms of the players that I have picked, Nick Dacos, he's one with the bye, but would you really be surprised if he went 125 or 130 this year? Um, he's just too good not to have in the side, and I would be surprised if anyone managed to out-average him this year. Next up is Tom Stewart, and he's probably one of the few picks that I've got where I don't think he has much upside. There was a bit of talk around him potentially playing midfield in preseason. I don't really buy any of that. But yeah, he's just a dependable player. You kind of look at the Geelong side just as a whole, and it's like, who else in that side can really go 90 plus? And the only one I can really think of is Jeremy Cameron. So the points have to go somewhere. They seem to go to Stewart. He's relatively dependable, and I don't see a reason he should take a step back. And again, in a line where only 7 players averaged over 100 last year, he should be clearing that 110 mark again. Next up is Sheasel. His ownership has skyrocketed, unfortunately, as a result of preseason. He's been in my side pretty much from day dot. It really looks like North are just going to feed him the Dacos blueprint. Started in defence last year. Looks like he will do a bit of the same this year, but also wouldn't be surprised to see him unleashed into the midfield at some point. As long as he isn't parked at full forward, which I highly doubt he would be at any point in the season, Shears was going to rack up the pills, score points for fun. The last player is Hayden Young. He was really good in the back half of last year when he moved into the midfield. I think it was a 5-game sample of scoring around about 110. Priced at a 94 average. And I'm not sure if he will go 110, but I think he can go somewhere between 100 and 105. And in the defense, that represents value. And then the last defender, he isn't a defender at the moment, but I'm just going to include him in this anyway because I think it makes sense. It's Nick Martin. He's priced at a 88 average, but he is going to be playing in defense this year for Essendon. Essendon are a side that they do have a few distributors across half-back, but they all seem to score well as a result of the Brad Scott system. And it seems if Nick Martin's going to be the so-called quarterback in that defense, which it seems like he will, then I don't see any reason why he can't go 105, which, again, in a defense line, I think that will be good enough. And at the price, it's just really good value. Not to mention that he's still fairly young as well. Like, even if he started the year in defense and transitioned back into a wing role, but got the defense DPP, he could still do 95 to 100 out there. So Nick Martin, had to throw him in. And then onto the defense rookies. I'm just going to sort them by owned. So I haven't gone with Zach Williams yet. He is named for round 0. I'm a little bit concerned how he does, just because he's had such a long injury history. I need to see it first before I pick him, and thankfully we do have a round 0 game to determine if he's a good pick or not. For the time being, not in the side, but there is definitely scope for that to change. Caulfield, Gibcus, and Zach Reed, all highly owned. And then the last one is Howes, fairly pod rookie, which I do love a pod rookie. So Caulfield, Gibcus, Reed, they all seem locked in the best 22. I don't think their scoring prospects are too high, like probably maxing out at like a 60 average, if that. But there aren't that many good defense rookies this year. And then the last one is Howes. I think the job security, he's a bit more of an unknown. And I kind of just look back to the past where Melbourne rookies, they've tended to be an unknown commodity for the most part. But all we need to do is look back at someone like Judd McVee. Not many people started him. He held his spot throughout the year. James Jordan, who interestingly enough is a pick this year, but when he burst into the side for the first time, he did get a pretty good extended run at it. Jake Bowie through the premiership here, he got a extended run at it. So he has been named to play round 0. I guess a lot will depend on how he does. But with the retirement of Angus Brayshaw, Christian Salem moving into midfield, the spot is there for Howes to deliver, and hopefully he does so at a relatively low ownership. We go into the midfield now, and I'm going to go back to premiums. And I'm really tossing up between a few of them here. At the moment, my structure only allows for 2 premium midfield options. So it's really a toss-up between Bontempelli, Goulden, Butters, and LDU. Bontempelli is he's just a stud. Should have won the Brownlow last year. I'm definitely salty about that. Paid for that through my wallet. But, normally you don't want to pick players off career best years, but that Bontempelli career best year came off a Dunkley vacancy in the midfield, and they have recruited Riley Sanders, but it's still very much the Bont show at the Dogs. And even if he did take a minor step back, like a 125 or something like that, he would still be a fine pick. He's just someone that's very safe, very rarely gets injured, and captain option, and all of that. And if you don't start the Bont, which is something I've been toying with, it's going to be really hard to get him in later in the season. Like, you're going to have to find a way to get him up, to find, that 650k or whatever he drops to at some point in the year. And going without him for the full year, I just don't think is an option unless he gets injured. So that's the case for starting the Bont. Goulden is the next one I'm considering. He's just a pig, man. What's he going into his 4th year of football this year? Averaged 111 last year, but over the back half of the year, I think that turned into like 118 since his bye or something like that. I guess I can take a look at his scoring, but the scoring is just ridiculous. Like, he has a 62 in there against the Saints, 66 against Fremantle, but the rest of it, it's all 120s. And he's expected to get more midfield time this year. He did get some CBAs last year, but that's set to increase, especially with all of the injuries in the Swans midfield. But his scoring in the past has mainly come from racking up pill around the ground. So if he's going to be in the coalface as well, and he's going to be racking up the ball around the ground, he could go 130 this year. And yes, he does have a bye, but that is a scary thing to fade. And again, if he starts off hot, how are you going to get him in without paying through the nose? And then the other two that I'm considering that I have a few more doubts around, Zach Butters, I really like the pick, but he rolled his ankle in preseason. I think he'll be fine. But that obviously is a very, it could be a red flag. The thing that reassures me is that Ken Hinkley in the past and Port Adelaide have been a fairly fantasy friendly source. They normally tell us if a player is going to debut or if a player is struggling through something. So I do trust that we will get the correct mail about Butters. I don't think it's a situation where they're going to say, oh, Butters is 100%, and then halfway through the season we find out that he's actually still carrying it. So I do like Butters. Again, he was someone that he started the year as a forward, and then I think from about round 4 onwards started getting CBAs. I think from that point onwards, he averaged around about 117 or 18 or something like that. So he does represent a little bit of value. Still very young, which means you've got the natural progression that'll come in. And if he's tip top, then I really like him as an option. The last one is LDU. He's definitely the more risky of them. Um, and yeah, so averaged 114 last year. Um, but if you do want to cherry pick it a bit, from after round 3, he played injured. And then um, I think if you exclude the games where he was hurt in some capacity, he averaged 130. And again, that is cherry picking it a bit because there are games against Fremantle and West Coast in there early on that aren't the strongest sides. Um, but still, 130, even if that was like 125, that's still a really good pick at the price point. I guess the concern is the injury history. I think, yeah, he did a calf and a hamstring last year or something like that. So he is a risky proposition. Only played 14 games, and yeah, that's the real risk with him. I think I'd probably be less inclined to start him if I didn't start him last year. I'm kind of still a bit burnt from English last year where I started him in 2022, decided to fade him in 2023 because of his injury history, and then he played a full year. So at the moment, I've got Goulden and LDU, but that could change very easily, especially if Butters is 100%. I really do like him as an option. Bond, he's kind of the safe option where if I've got a couple of 100K left over, then I will consider doing like a LDU up to a Bond just for that extra security. But at the same time, I do want to continue picking underpriced players if I can. Speaking of players that are underpriced, we go into the premium range, but not uber premium. The first one is Took. He is a stud. And yeah, that 97 average just from last year doesn't do him any kind of justice. He started last year really hot. Well, not really hot, but hot enough, Unfortunately, I traded him in at round 6 for that 40. Before that, he was averaging 115. Comes back from injury. I think I traded him in again after the St Kilda 101, hoping he would go on with it. I just really didn't time my Took trade-ins last year. But all he has to do is find that form from the start of last year. He did look good in the preseason game. That was something I definitely needed to see. And I do get another look at him in round 0. So if he does look off the pace or the CBA numbers aren't there, then I will look to jump off him. But yeah, I mean, only in 2022, 120. So getting took in at 545k, even with the buy, it just it screams value to me. And then the last pick, the last premium pick, which is definitely more speculative, but he's someone that's been in my side all preseason, and I was really annoyed to see him absolutely destroy the Pracky. But it is Hugh McCluggage, and when I got onto him, he was at 1%. He's now gone up to 4%, and I just hope that he doesn't dominate against the Blues, because he's someone that I've wanted all preseason, and I wanted him at a low ownership. There'll be at least a few people on him now, but I just think everything lines up so perfectly for Hugh this year, apart from the early buy. The injury to Ashcroft means that he should be getting at least 60% CBAs. He hasn't gone above 80% in a game in his whole career for CBAs, so I don't think that's realistic. I think he's the third mid behind Neil and Dunkley quite clearly, but still, if he's getting up around that 70% range, although it's probably more likely to be somewhere between 60 and 70, he can go nuts. Once Ashcroft got injured last year, he averaged 108. That includes finals. And he also goes into a contract year where he very much needs to perform to get a mega contract. So he's just someone that's a really fun player to watch, very skillful, and I just really enjoy watching him play, and I think he can go. He can have that breakout year this year where he goes somewhere between 110 to 115, in my opinion. So I'm very hot on the McCluggage pick, hence why I've called the team name 50K Suitcase, because I'm hoping that this piece of luggage can carry me to the 50K. So that covers the expensive midfielders. I'll go into some of the cheaper options. So everyone here is 300k or less. So I've got Sanders, I've got McKercher, and I currently have Sam Berry. Sanders and McKercher, don't really need to say much about them. Sam Berry is someone that really interests me. Only 4%, that didn't really have anything to do with it, but it was only in 2022 that Berry averaged, what was it, 80? 2022. Yeah, so yeah, averaged 86 in 2022. Was not in favor last year. There was a fair bit of hype around him, and people were willing to pick him at 450k last year. But things just didn't go right. Didn't cement his spot in the midfield, but he's still, fourth year in the system. I think Adelaide have said that Laird might spend a bit less time in there this year. I'm not sure if I buy that completely or not. But look, he will have to play well to cement a spot in the midfield. You've got Dawson that'll roll through there, but Dawson is a flexible player. He could spend a little bit less time in there. You've got Laird, you've got Matt Crouch on the older side, but he provides just that grunt. And then if Berry can be that fourth midfielder, even some kind of, maybe like 40, 50% CBAs and spend the rest of the time as like a half forward or something like that, I think he can score well enough to get back to that 80 range. Adelaide have also flagged that Rankin will fly through there a bit, so it's definitely not a pick without risk. But and I'm not 100% convinced on Berry at the moment, but I do think I'm going to want someone in that 200k price range. somewhere between 200 and 300K. So he is the pick at the moment. Another one that is in consideration, depending on how well he does in round zero, is Thompson Dow. 250K should be the third midfielder in that rotation. I think he can do 75 to 80 odd. I want to see how he does in round zero first. A big performance there, and he'll probably enter the side. The other one that's a consideration is Bonner, 280K, playing in defense in a Saints system where defenders score well for the most part. Jimmy Webster's suspension opens up the spot, so and Jack Sinclair maybe not being fit for the first couple of rounds means that Bonner could score really well in there. The story of his Port career was very much in and out of the side, but I think, 2020? He's definitely had a big year in there somewhere. Maybe not. I thought he had a year where he averaged around about 80 odd, but maybe not. That was a 2-game sample. Only one game there. Maybe I've talked myself out of Bonner a bit because he hasn't really proved it. Career stats. Yeah, okay. He's only averaged 76 in 2022. The 1 year I didn't look at. I don't know why I thought it was ages ago. But yeah, 76 and 22. I think there was a sub in there, a couple of sub appearances in there. Yeah, so 80, pretty much 80 if you exclude those sub appearances. And it also goes into a system where defenders do score well. So Bonner, not an option I'm as keen on. Obviously haven't done the most amount of research on him, but he's someone that's in consideration as well. Moving on to the bench, I've got Clark. I've got Sharp and I've got Roberts. Roberts will get a look at in round zero, see what his role is and how he scores. But he's one that he was a sub a fair bit last year. I think he had the one big game where he kind of broke out against against Richmond, and then ended up getting injured in that game against Geelong. So we've seen one game where he can score well. If he can secure his spot in the 22, then hopefully he can score like 65, 70. Jai Clark, he'll get opportunities in midfield this year as long as he's best 22, which I think he is. And then Sharp, he's the one I'm a little bit iffy on, but he's scored okay in his Gold Coast career. And the last time a Gold Coast player came over to Fremantle, I faded them and it didn't go too well. So hopefully Sharp can do like a 60, 65 odd. He's just what I think is the best of the cheap rookies. Now we go into the ruck line. This has given me a fair bit of grief over the years. Starting English in 2022, missing him in 2023. This year, I think I'm going to go against the consensus. Everyone wants to go Gawn Grundy. I'm going Gawn and Sherry. Starting with Big Max, yes, he's on the older side, but when Grundy did miss last year, he went absolutely nuts. I think it was like 120 odd average. Even if he does 115 or something like that, he's still underpriced and a really good option. And I don't think you can watch a Melbourne game if you don't own the big man. He's just an absolute freak of nature and Hall of Fame once his career ends. Everyone wants to go for Grundy in the second ruck position. He did have a really bad practice game, but it is a practice game. So That's fair enough. I've just always, well, not always, but the last few years, I've been a Grundy hater. I'm not afraid to say it. Um, Ever since COVID, his scoring has decreased. There's a reason the Pies wanted to get rid of him. Yes, he's on a mega contract, but if they had any faith he could find the form before he signed the contract, then they would have fought harder to keep him. They let him go for, you know, um, pretty much nothing, and he hasn't been the same since COVID. Even in games, so he obviously played with Gorn last year, which was detrimental to both of them. But in the games where Grundy did play as a sole ruck, on paper it looks good. I think he averaged like 110, but he also played a game against Laddams and a game against Bailey Williams and a game against the Essendon duo that absolutely took him to the cleaners. So he scored well in that game, but he didn't actually play a good game there. And then Laddams and Bailey Williams, they're not AFL standard rucks. Played one game against McInerney and he didn't score well there. I think he scored 80-ish. 74 against McInerney. Then plays two fodder ruck in there. Scores well against Essendon and doesn't look good. It's going to sound crazy to say, but Grundy being 3-4 years younger than Gawn looks more cooked than Gawn is. I don't trust him to maintain scoring throughout the year if he does start off well, and I know people want him to get back to his glory days where he's averaged 120, 130. 2 years of 130. COVID hits 120, 115, and then 103 in 22, and then 86 in 23. I do think he'll definitely improve on the 86 just by virtue of being the sole rock, but I don't see him going over 105. And so, with Grundy priced, I reckon he'll go probably around about 100 odd. And so Grundy priced at 86. I prefer the pivot to Sherry, who's priced at a 73. His sample size as a sole rock is pretty limited. At the start of the year, was absolutely cooking Bailey Williams, who again, not a AFL standard ruck, before he got injured. And then pretty much after that was sharing the ruck duties with Todd Goldstein, who is a pretty good ruck in his own right. So I think it was only Geelong and Hawthorn where he ended up sole rocking last year. He has had a little bit more in previous years, but last year, 102 against the Cats and 75 against the Hawks. Doesn't look that good on paper, but the Hawks were, I think, the most restrictive side against rucks. Another year of natural improvement. He's still relatively young. We normally don't see rucks break out until their fifth, sixth year. So I think he's going into year 7, getting the sole ruck duties for the first time in his career. I don't think he's going to average 100, but I think he can go, somewhere between 90 and 95 and, priced about 20 points below what I think he will score. It means that he's going to be a fairly decent bridge to getting a premium ruck. And I think there's a lot of candidates in the ruck one that can do well this year. Sean Darcy, 115 before, if you exclude his injury games. I think it's like 112 if you exclude his injury games. He's a really good option. Briggs, he broke out in a big way last year. Not many people will start him, but He might be the option to go to in the second half of the year. Rowan Marshall only at 7%. He had a really strong second half of the year. I do like him as an option. And obviously English at the top of the line. All of these guys could be options throughout the year. I'm not sure which one I'd want to bet on at this point. So Sherry is kind of like a cash cow bridge option to then go and snag the one that I want, or maybe one that gets injured and comes back and is a cheap price. That's the way I'm going to attack the ruck line this year. R3, I've got a donut. Naismith, he's going to play round 0, but I'm not too sure how long Nankervis is going to be out for. If it seems like it's going to be, 4 weeks, then I'll definitely bring in Naismith for the cash gen. But at this stage, I value the loophole a little bit more, and I think Nank will come back relatively soonish. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with the forwards. I'll sort it by average just so we can see how much of a wasteland it is. Not a single forward that is pickable this year averaged over 100. So the standards in the forward line are definitely lower than they have been in the past. We got players like Goulden, Taranto, Dunkley. I'm definitely missing one of them. Did I say Butters? Rosie? All guys that were pickable in the forward line last year and went on to smash it last year. So now going into this year, the premium options, they're not that premium. And we might get a couple of DPPs that arise later in the year. But at the moment, it is fairly barren. So I'll start off by picking Flanders. His ownership's gone down a little bit since the practice match, and I can understand it. Gold Coast top 3 midfielders Took, Rowell, and Anderson. Flanders will be that fourth one where he definitely gets some CBAs, but not as much as we would like. I think the good thing is that we did see last year that even when Flanders' CBAs decreased, he was still able to score pretty well. I think in the back half of the year, he was averaging like 110, and that was even with Took in the side. I don't think that number is realistic, but I still think he can go 100, 100-ish. So Flanders, he is in the side despite the early buy. Because if I think he can go 100 and no one else can, and he's the 10th price forward, then I'm definitely going to take that value. The next player is Zach Fisher. I'm surprised it's only 27%, but he's just set to go into that North Melbourne goal role that Jack Zeeble thrived in, Aaron Hall thrived in, Sheasel thrived in last year. And as long as he is in that role, he's going to score points. He's a bit expensive at 380k, and he has been injured a fair bit throughout his career, but if he's going to, in that goal role, he can go 90 plus, and it's just a really good value at that price point. These are the two I've decided to go with. If there was a way to get defense a little bit cheaper, I would consider maybe throwing out a Stewart and picking another forward breakout in this position. There's two that I like. The first one, Rankin, I glossed over him before. Averaged 82 last year, but Adelaide have flagged that he will spend some more time in midfield this year. So if he's able to average like a 95 and you're getting him at 460k, then that is a value. The second one is Jeremy Cameron. Surprised he went up. He was 5% a few weeks ago. Now it's 6%. Didn't have a great practice game. But look, with Jeremy, he was averaging 95 last year and then got KO'd by Gary Rowan and just wasn't really the same. So up until that hit, 95 average, KO'd within the first few minutes against Melbourne, scores a -3, misses 2 weeks, doesn't come back the same player, misses the last game because he goes in for shoulder surgery. So a fit and firing Jeremy Cameron, priced at a 82 average, I think he can go he could go 95 like he did at the start of last year. He represents value at the price. I'm just struggling to find a way to get either him or Rankin in. And in part, that's due to some of the amazing value that is in the forward line. So first one is Jordan. We've got Harley Reid in there, Jack Billings, and Sexton. And these are all guys that I'm pretty comfortable fielding, but they're also going to make a fair bit of cash. We'll start with Jordan. He's a player, as a Melbourne supporter, I've really rated him ever since he broke into the starting side. And I was disappointed that he left, but kind of, I do understand it, so don't hold anything against him personally. It seems like he's going to play mostly on a wing. He can score 80, 85 out there, but there is also the potential added upside of some CBAs, especially with guys like Parker, Parker broken arm, Mills not starting the year, Taylor Adams isn't going to start the year, so there's some potential upside to the pick. But even if he is stuck on a wing role, I think he can do somewhere between 80 and 85. He does rack up the pill, and I like him as a player. Next up, Harley Reid, #1 draft pick. I'm just not going to miss him with all the hype that's come out of the West. And Jack Billings, 243K. I think it was in 2022 where I think he averaged like 70 odd, but one of those games he got injured in the first quarter. So really it was effectively an 80 average. And that was the same as the year before. So 2023, obviously things didn't go right for him. Him and Ross Lyon didn't see eye to eye. I think a new start will be beneficial for him. He'll play like a high half forward role in a team that theoretically should be good. Whether they are good remains to be seen. But yeah, if he can do 80, 85 odd, then he's making 150K. And then the last pick is Alex Sexton. I was really not keen on him until the practice match. I thought he was going to be another constable, but he's just racking the pill up for fun. So 133K, he seems like a must start at this point and someone that'll be a strong field option as well. I haven't gone for Fife. He did score well in the practice game, but he's someone that's had a lot of injury issues throughout the years, and I think playing a pure midfield role is only going to exacerbate those. I don't know. I just don't see him getting through 6-7 games playing pure mid without getting subbed off or, having a soft tissue injury or something like that. So, yeah, I'm just with Fife, too old, too injury prone, don't want him. Bench, I've got Darcy Wilson at the moment, and I've got Caleb Windsor. Windsor, I'm not 100% convinced on. Should do okay out on a wing. I think he'll be a fairly similar scoring profile to an Ollie Hollands last year, where he might only score, your 50s and 60s early on and build into it as the year progresses. But he's someone that with a round 6 bye, he's a candidate for an early cut if I need to do that. And then Darcy Wilson looked good in the practice game. So this leaves me around about 135K in the bank. If I do want to get Zach Williams, he is someone I could decide to get. If Sam Berry isn't the option, then there's a lot of flexibility there. I think another rookie, Henry Hustwaite, I think that's how you say it. He's someone that looked good in preseason. I can't pick him purely based on the fact that Sam Mitchell has given us a couple of promising rookies like Josh Ward and Cam McKenzie and done us wrong by them, especially Cam McKenzie last year. Plays a couple of games in the midfield and then gets dropped and comes back as a forward. I mean, really? I would have liked to see him get more midfield time last year, and I just have a trust issue with Sam Mitchell and, by extension, Hawthorn rookies. So this money, gives me an out to get a Zach Williams if I need to, get rid of Sam Berry up to like a Bonner if that's the move, Hustwaite, or pretty much even like I'm not sure how far away Daniel Curtin is, but it does give me an out. So I like holding this amount of money in the bank. I think the team is a good mix between, I think it's a mostly value-based team, but there's also some big dogs in there. I'd be pretty comfortable captaining Dacos pretty much every week. I do have a loophole, but again, if Naismith looks like he's going to play more than 3 games, then I'll get him. Maybe Geelong play silly buggers with Conway, and maybe he gets a start at some point as well. So this is how I intend on having the team. Maybe Thompson Dow fits in there as well, but we'll see how things go. I've done enough talking. Thanks very much for watching, and I don't think I'll do a reveal before round 1. I do want to keep cards a little bit close to my chest. I don't want people to completely directly copy the side. But I will do a reveal after round 1. If you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. And thanks for watching. I'll see you for the next video.